Hello everyone, Toni Serafini here. Now, as the title of my talk suggests, it suggests that I will be focusing on rape culture and humor, but that's really only part of the story. I am not a stand-up comedian, though perhaps I wish I was sometimes. That's not my area of expertise, but as a relationship and identity researcher, my focus will be on humor as an example of how we use language in ways that reflect our values and beliefs, how we perform our sense of self, who we are, our identity, through language and behaviors. So let's begin by unpacking jokes and humor. First, there is no universal experience or performance of humor. It is, as they say, a personal taste. So it is safe to say that not everyone finds the same things funny. Fair? Yeah. Second, it may also be fair to say that many types of humor, not all, but a vast majority, are founded upon poking fun at the other. A person, a group, a role, a position, for example, the clergy. Think, a priest, a rabbi, and a minister walk into a bar. We've all heard them before. What many forms of humor have in common is that there is a butt of the joke. Someone is on the receiving end in some way. Now, many jokes, one-liners, phrases, humorous references also involve the sexualization of people, objects, behaviors, and experiences. And a subgroup of these sexualized jokes involve violence. And the others targeted in this form of humor are often women. Now, I didn't want to do this, but I will read out a few. There's another type of joke or approach to humor that has enjoyed increasing visibility in our society of late, and that is rape jokes and rape humor. A quick Google search provided a number of options for me to share today, as disturbing as they are. So, for example, a man walks up to a woman in a bar and says, "You're going to get laid tonight." A bit surprised, she asks, "Really? How do you know that? Are you psychic?" "No, I'm just stronger than you are." So let's talk about language. Language, words, are the foundation of humor. Humor is communicated through language. Language is powerful. Words matter because words convey meaning and have power. So words create discourses, and discourses shape beliefs and values and eventually behaviors. Because words are used to convey jokes, to share humor, humor plays an important role in creating, shaping, and maintaining various discourses. As an example, let's consider the blonde joke. Blondes have more fun. We've heard that for many years. What's the narrative there? When I say blondes have more fun, what do you picture? What do you see in your mind's eye? Do you see a woman, curvy, sexy, something sexualized, perhaps something not too bright? The message or meanings that underlie those jokes are that blondes are less intelligent, sexualized, always out for a good time. You should be drawn to blondes for fun, not substance, ditzy, easy. So, what's it been like for you blondes in the room? Not my experience. Have you ever been on the receiving end of a blonde joke? How'd that make you feel? Did it lift you up? Did it make you feel all warm and fuzzy, confident, appreciated for all of who you are? Did you find the jokes funny? If no, why not? Because they target a group of which you are a member, perhaps? Because they all paint the members of your group in a negative light? Because of the stereotypes they create that you have had to resist and counter in your daily life? Because they subtly impact how people interact with you. These jokes create and maintain a narrative that is oppressive and degrading towards and sexualizing of women. These narratives or discourses slowly but persistently infect us and shape our values in ways we might not even be aware of. As is well known by cognitive behaviorists, Thoughts influence actions, so thoughts are dangerous. Now, humor is personal, and humor has consequences, some immediate, some long-term, some direct, others indirect. So let's consider what it's like to be a critical consumer of humor. What's funny to you may not be funny to others. Why? So let's unpack that. From a developmental perspective, what impacts what we find funny? How is our sense of humor constructed? We look first to psychology, in-group and out-group, us and them. It's basic social psychology. Being in the in-group is safe, affirming, creates a sense of belonging. Humor that others is usually funny and safe for those in the in-group, but not so much for those being othered. So where do we learn what's funny? How do we learn our humor? Well, considering context, socialization, it begins in our families of origin. We are first exposed to humor there. Certain types of humor are considered funny in our families of origin. Beliefs and value transmission begin there. It's subtle. Then we add power, the need to fit in, the need to belong. These can influence what we find funny. From a developmental perspective, Erikson referred to belonging as central to adolescent identity development. He wrote about developing a sense of self that fits in society, that we need to obtain some societal recognition for who we are. So being funny could lead to popularity, could lead to acceptance, and being accepted among a group fosters a sense of belonging and recognition. So what we find funny may change in different contexts and across time as our power changes and as our beliefs and values change or solidify over time. So what does it mean to be a critical consumer of humor? I argue today that being a critical consumer of humor is paying attention to the power of language and what our language communicates about who we are. What does it say about us when we laugh in response to others being hurt, put down, marginalized? Are we bullies, directly or indirectly? How does our sense of humor reflect who we are as people and our values? We communicate to others or perform who we are through what we say, how we say it, and what we do. Language and humor are thus a reflection of our values. So humor and rape culture. My first explicit exposure to rape culture was here at the University of Waterloo campus as an instructor. I overheard one student speaking to another and exclaiming, partly laughing, "I just got raped on that exam." I stopped dead. My arms and neck filled with goosebumps. I had never before heard the word rape used in that context. I was so shocked that I couldn't speak, and by the time I shook myself out of it, they had left. Since then, a few years ago now, rape language and rape humor have grown and expanded into multiple domains. My quick Google search provided me with a wide array of rape jokes from which to choose for my next dinner party's entertainment, if I so choose. On university campuses, we have heard of the Frosh Week chants that endorse and invite sexual violence, the phrases, the slogans like "Fathers, thank you for your daughters," and "No means yes." Among other things, this language normalizes violence. It dehumanizes. And the target of these messages? Often women and those in marginalized groups. These phrases and jokes are presented as just a joke. It's meant to be funny. But this humor is founded upon violence, hurting someone physically, because sexual assault is also a physical assault and a psychological assault. When we consider the prevalence of sexual assault and domestic violence reported in Canada alone, some stats suggest that 1 in 4 women will be sexually assaulted in their lifetime. What are the chances that someone within earshot of such rape jokes and rape humor, that someone within earshot has experienced sexual violence in that way or knows someone who has? It's pretty high. So how could your use of language, in this case humor, as innocuous as you think it might be, serve to re-traumatize someone you know, someone you like, someone you care about? If you know that your language choices may hurt others, will you consciously continue to make those choices? Us and them. We often hear the too sensitive defense in response to this type of humor. It's just a joke, you're too sensitive, damn political correctness, it's gone too far when no one can take a joke. Well, my response to that is that our personal humor is about us, not them. Direct the lens inward. What does your language communicate about you? My personal human values are centered around anti-oppressive practices, social justice, and safer spaces for all. Spaces not just physical. How about the social, psychological spaces we create through interactions with others? The onus is on me, on us, to create those safer spaces. Now, laughter is wonderful, like medicine for the heart and soul. But jokes that normalize and trivialize violence and assault are not funny. They are psychologically assaultive. They are a perpetuation of violence. So this brings me back to the identity part of my talk. I am an identity researcher, and I've been studying how people construct their sense of self and live out their values for years. I'm a postmodern social developmentalist. I made that term up. And here's how I see the lifespan unfold with respect to identity. Begins with family and caregivers, our first socializing agents. Family transmission of values. Belonging and acceptance starts here. Teens then move from a family orientation to a peer orientation. They look to peers as alternative sources of identity information for belonging. Erickson says that identity development is the key task, the central task of adolescence and early adulthood, and Jeffrey Arnett extends that into emerging adulthood, the stage many of you are at now. Now, at the same time, we know from Piaget that cognitive changes are happening. Our thinking is becoming more sophisticated. We have the ability to think abstractly, to think critically, beginning in adolescence and moving into adulthood. Self-reflection flows from this. We are able to think critically about ourselves and who we are, and this is important to our process of identity development. Now, the old school behaviorists viewed people as passive recipients of the environment, as created by the environment with no choice, no control. Cognitivists, humanists, and others counter this with the free will argument. We have free will and are thus active participants in our experiences. The self, identity, can be actively or passively constructed. So how do our beliefs get constructed over time? When identity work may begin in adolescence, researchers agree that it continues to the lifespan. So if we unpack this a little, what are the beliefs and values that make you who you are? What is at the core of who you are? And how do you perform that identity in everyday life? Your actions, behavior, language choices, and interactions with others. Are you a passive recipient of environmental stimuli, or do you have free will, thereby choosing for yourself who you want to be and how you perform or act out your identity? So do you want to be the person for whom funny happens on the backs of others, especially the marginalized, those with less power, and those who have experienced violence? Humor is not innocuous. Language is powerful, and both have consequences. Both are a window to your values and beliefs. They reflect who you are and who you want to be. So do you believe that people have a right to control their bodies, that physical acts of violence, humiliation, and degradation without consent are not acceptable? How do you intentionally or unintentionally contribute to a culture that trivializes and condones acts of physical and sexual violence against you, your friends, your family members, through the use of your own language, including your humor? If you believe that all persons have value, all people should be able to live their lives free of physical, sexual, and psychological violence, then how does your language, the humor you perpetuate or condone via passive participation, reflect and communicate those values to others. Free will, you've all got it. Who do you want to be? The choice is yours, and the struggle is real. Thank you.